Yeah, so yes, and I don't know if I made it. I still I actually don't know. And everybody
It's what?
I can give you a call. I can come to the office.
I don't really like that light. Is there a way to make it lighter or lower or something? Because I cannot speak that. Whoa! Thank you. Okay. Well, guys, thank you very, very much for being here. I mean, we're supposed to have started 30 minutes ago. I'm sorry, but everybody's enjoying their dinner very much, apparently. And we have a very important topic to discuss. So I think that we better start, and then we have more time for our conversation afterwards. We have, I mean, the problem that we are discussing this time is really something that, I mean, I am the editor-in-chief for the Religious Freedom Report of Aid to the Church in Need already for 7 years. We publish every 2 years. And I'm alarmed to see that every year, every time that we edit, that we publish, this problem of the abduction, what I call really, because I don't like those stories of forced marriage, I call it abduction and sexual enslavement of women and girls. Because I believe, sincerely and deep in my heart with all my fury, that a term such as forced marriage or forced conversion, which actually mix two words, one that is horrible and one that is good, no? Forced, nobody wants to be forced to do anything, but marriage is good, conversion is good. For some countries, it's actually the most desired outcome, and for some people also. And mixing them just pulls like a thick blanket on at least 10 crimes that are condemnable, punishable by civil law of most of the countries that we are going to discuss tonight, punished by civil law. And on top of that, there are at least 6 fundamental human rights which are violated in each and every occasion that a woman or a girl is abducted in that manner. So I dislike utterly the term, and I think that vocabulary is very important. Because when we say something like forced marriage, it transfers some part of the fault to the victim. She married, she converted. And that is something that we have to avoid at all costs, because in no way having to renounce to ever see your family again, to ever speak your language again, to ever celebrate your traditions again, in no way is anything positive for the victim. So we have to be very vigilant with what we call this problem. So this is a very nice event organized by a variety of groups, which represent not only the young people whose future is totally destroyed by such an abduction and sexual enslavement, but also in Africa, where we have seen, most of us, that the worst of the violations are developing quicker. It's like we know that there's growth in population and in economic hopes and everything, but the Islamists, the conservatives, the extremists know it too. So they want to stop it at any price, even if that means destroying natality and everything that we have as hope in Asia and in Africa. Religious minorities, as a general rule, pay it worse, because in a government that turns a blind eye to the condemnation of the loss of childhood in their own women and girls is the most likely to simply ignore any right of any religious minority. So there will be no police investigation, there will be no trial, and if there's a trial, they will be changing strategically from city to city, like they do in Pakistan all that. No, they start one case in Karachi, then the next hearing is in Hyderabad, and the next one is in I don't know where, in Islamabad or something, and like that they distract justice they prevent people from ever being happy again. And that has to stop. So even if we are few now here, we are going to really reflect on that, and we are going to come with ideas, okay? So we have as first speaker, Mrs. Tassie Ghata, which is really in the coordinator of Grace and Light, of course you have it there. She has worked in HIV and AIDS field for nearly 30 years. 30 years, so she knows it. Really from the very beginning how this has been evolved and actually even used against women at some point in time. It has demonstrated a history of working in the nonprofit sector and with religious organizations. Why also? Because as we were hearing in other panels, in Africa in particular, religion is not just going to church on Sunday. It's a daily way of life. So it's not no joke doing, or not just because we don't have anything else to do, to involve religious organizations. Change the next. And then you will have Joseph Janssen, our Dutch Pakistani, Lindsay Rodriguez from Coptic Solidarity Development, and Mariam, we would have liked to have her, but she told us that she was in a multiple car crash this morning. Oh, no. That she went out well, but we haven't heard from her. And I have tried to reach her over the phone, but it goes directly to voicemail. Yeah? And then we have Soraya Deen, an honor to meet you, a lawyer, community organizer, and an international activist on Muslim women speakers, which is something that in many countries it would be like an oxymoron. Either you are Muslim or a woman or a speaker. But not all three at the same time, so it must be quite a shock to many. Okay, so I would like I would like then to give the word to Ms. Tassie, so that you give us what your point of view of the situation on this problem that we really want to stop. Thank you.
My sitting or standing?
Wherever you prefer. You prefer here?
Go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, all. Thank you that you are here to share with us an issue that has been a burden to many of us and to my partners here. And I work with HIV for a long time, and all of those things we are talking about is things we see in the world of HIV, and it goes with trafficking, abduction, and forceful marriages that we find. I want to say myself as a person that I am female and I had problems with abduction twice, maybe 3 times with my husband, but that is not the case today. I want to share stories of what I have seen with young people in trafficking. Because we work under Grace Alive, we work with students and we have so many of them. Trafficking is not just intercontinental or in just some places, but right in the country, domestically, there is trafficking. Last year, we had to send 2 young people back home because, as far as I'm concerned, they were being trafficked to stay with some people, be helpers in their homes. But at the end of it, the families were using them, the husbands of the families they were in. And one even told us her story, not just the husband, but the male children in the house are just sleeping with her. And we had to take them back to their families in villages. So trafficking is happening, and many of the girl children are the ones suffering with this. But we have some too that are being trafficked outside the country, and we get opportunities to speak and sometimes bring them back to their families. But when it comes to kidnapping, is one story that is high there, whether they are kidnapped from school or as a family or in a group in the villages. One thing that happens easily is that they are violated. That's all takes place, and a lot of the times, even the kidnappers prefer girls Like when I was kidnapped, I had a girl child. I'm sure somebody there would have told them, whoever it is, my informant must have said she has a daughter. And so before they even took me out, they were looking for who is my daughter. Where is she? Where is her room? They had to go to her room and search to be sure she is not there or there. And even when we were in the bush, they were asking that somebody told them my daughter was around, but I told them she wasn't around. And all that happens when they take female girls, when they take girls out during kidnapping is rape and all the other return and kill them. And I have a person last 2 Christmas that served me food in her house. Going back to school, she was adopted. And so many of such stories back there. But we also have forceful marriages. My husband is from Katsina, and Katsina is the northern part of Nigeria, is in the northern part of Nigeria. And we have cases where they were forced to renounce Christianity and forcefully got married to somebody. And they will be birth. I don't know what you call that, but they would change their names, and just by force that they are Muslims and therefore married to somebody. But that is the same thing Boko Haram have been doing, as they take young people, they take young girls, they force them to marry whoever that they have taken there for them. And we have these stories of forced conversion. It goes together with the marriage. They force the kidnap, they forced them to convert, they forced them to marry. That is what has been happening. And something that happens easily also is when I have found it in villages and women are denied their rights to continue even in school. Some of the young girls would have to work to pay their brother's school fees. And this is what parents would do. Therefore, they have no freedom for themselves to continue what they are doing.
Okay, thank you. You want to come up? Yeah, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lindsay Rodriguez with Coptic Solidarity. And first, I just want to thank Hulda and everyone else who's worked so hard to organize this event. I know we may be a small group, but what we have to talk about is powerful, and through video and through photos, we will spread the word and we can make much more awareness, even though this is a little bit late in the day for all of us. So with trafficking of Coptic women and minor girls, when I joined Coptic Solidarity nearly 10 years ago, we were told that about 500 Coptic women and minor girls had been abducted, and they called it kidnapping at the time. And they basically said, you know, these girls were kidnapped, they're targeted, and they just disappear, and no one hears from them again. So during my first years with the organization, we started looking into it more. There's virtually almost no reporting. The only reporting that's ever been done on this topic in Egypt was done by Christian Solidarity International, and that was been about 15 years ago. So just to paint a picture of what happens in Egypt, the trafficking happens primarily, it's coordinated through mosques and with imams, it's coordinated with local police, it's coordinated with local government officials, and then the hired muscle. What we do know is that people are paid for every girl that they manage to abduct. And that's from a former person who worked in that, had confirmed that actually to Compass Direct News. We know that often these women and minor girls are taken when they're doing things like going to school, going to university, going to church, when they're traveling alone. But the most common technique is to lure them. And so this is the biggest issue with what we call trafficking, and I really appreciate the introduction about, you know, what is forced marriage, what is forced conversion. So kind of jumping ahead within definition of trafficking by the UN, by the Arab League itself, by the US definition. And when we looked at all those definitions, that's where we saw that what is happening really can be called technically trafficking. And that really raised the profile of what's happening in Egypt. So in 2020, we released a and that refers essentially to the very intentional idea of taking women who are pregnant and converting them to Islam forcibly, marrying them to a Muslim, and they disappear. And that means that that baby will now be Muslim. So you're basically taking away the Christian population in Egypt. And so that's why we call it Jihad al-Wud. Another way that I want to jump back to of how this happens is because of the honor in a very conservative society like in Egypt. We call it like luring, and essentially these groups that are trying to traffic women, what they do is they have somebody try to establish a relationship with a Coptic woman, probably a young woman typically, and that's kind of frowned upon in society. Then it gets to the point where if she wants to break up, or maybe she starts to feel uncomfortable, she's not able to, because then they threaten the family, and then they threaten her as well. So that's typically how these situations occur. The biggest problem, if I could highlight, is that the US government and the USERF don't want to acknowledge that it truly is trafficking. I had a meeting this week with State Department, trafficking office. And essentially they said it's really, really hard to prove that these women are trafficked because you have to show that they're being used for forced labor or for sex slavery. Well, most of the reporting happens on Facebook, right? Like Coptic priests and the family members, that's where they report it. And when we get calls often at Coptic Solidarity from the families, once they report it, so much is monitored by the Egyptian government that women will often, or the families will often retract their stories or change their stories because they get threatened by state security. So then at the threat of possibly never seeing that person again, they retract. So it makes it very, very difficult to report on. But I encourage you, if you have a chance to look at a report, Jihad al-Wud. I had a couple copies and I kept putting them out and they kept disappearing from my table, which I think is a good thing that people are reading it. I meant to hold one up, but I don't have one right now because they're all gone. The last thing I wanted to say is that we are not aware of a single case in Egypt where a woman or a minor girl has been taken in which anyone involved in the situation was ever held accountable by the Egyptian government, by the police, by the justice system. So there's complete impunity, which means it's going to keep happening, right? That is one final point. And the other, second final point, is that there's no services available for the women who have been taken. So in the very rare instance where there's a lot of international pressure and the woman is suddenly found and returned to her family, there's nothing for them. So they're basically considered rude, right? Because of their reputation in this honor culture. There's no shelters, there's no services specifically for people who've been trafficked. And so that's something that I think in the broader discussion, we would like to keep pushing for, not only the recognition of what is trafficking in Egypt, but also what is being done to help these people moving forward if they are recovered.
Yes.
That was a very understanding perspective because after many of the same things that we heard now from that happen in Egypt that are taking place frequently.
Thank you so much.
Pakistan.
Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about such a crucial human rights issue in regards to religious minorities. My name is Joseph Janssen. I'm from Pakistan, based Netherlands, and I do advocacy with Jubilee Campaign in Netherlands. So I will focus on challenges about the issue of abduction, forced faith conversion, child and forced marriages of minority girls and women in Pakistan, as well as the ways forward. Voice for Justice and Jubilee Campaign recently on National Human Rights Day launched a report, studied 100 cases from 2019 to 2022 October, which is conversion without consent. This is available on the website and on media to study about. And this study says that 61% of the targeted girls were before reaching the age of 16, and 18% girls become victim of the forced conversion before the age of 16 to 18 years, whereas number of cases have been reported like 7% or other percentage from the age of 18. These cases are 100% focused on Christian girls, but there are many other Hindu and Sikh, other minority girls has been also converted to Islam. During our research, we found 100 cases due to our limited resources in the rural areas, going to every district to find, to inquire more, investigate more, are having less sources available to go village to village and investigate more. But also there is a reason that people don't have access to register their cases due to the lack of the reason that they go to the police station and they are humiliated, they are rejected, neglected at the police station actually. It is quite often that the abductors is quite twice more older than the abductor girl. Like the girl is 15, the abductor is 30-year-old. Girl is 14, abductor is 40-year-old, and already married, has children, and he is called husband of the abductor girl. The abductors present the case at the police station and in the court as a Christian converted to Islam, so which get widely praised, widely gets supported by the Islam, and its key role actors like judges, police, and other institutes, because it is the issue of Islam, then he gained support from all these institutes. Actually, individuals from these institutes who are supposed to protect the girls become the facilitator of the abductor or the facilitator of the conversion. The abductor commonly used tactics like, as I said, the police, judges give judgments on the basis because the girl has been converted to Islam, and they take in account that is more like the girl has been converted and in a base of religion or in a support to the conversion. The evidence that is submitted by the, for example, parents of the girl, the birth certificate by the parents, crucial evidence, or there's in Pakistan B form, like family registration form, family book, or any other from the hospital childbirth certificate. These all documents have been rejected by the police officer, by the court, and same time the abductor present the fake fabricated documents like marriage certificate are fake, recently created, that the girl is 18-year birth certificate fabricated, is accepted in the police station at the court, and the court does not take into account that these documents are fabricated and dismiss the court hearing, dismiss the file, and give the custody, illegal custody, to the abductor rather than sending 14-year-old girls with their parents. I would like to share the story of Servia Pervez. She was 14-year-old. On 30th of April, she was abducted from her house and she was drugged trafficked from one city far away from her parents, from her house to other place, and she was forcefully married, forcefully converted to the person who is 40-year-old, Imran. Her parents presented her birth certificate in the court, presented her B form, other family registration, which is saying that, but Rawalpindi bench, the court, reject all these evidence and dismiss the case. The girl has to stay with the abductor. The case was rejected by the High Court. After a few months, our human rights group, they tried to rescue her, our team in Pakistan, and on the rescue, she informed us how she was treated during the 6 months, how she was raped, she was tortured, she was crucially on her denial. She was sodomized, raped multiple times. She tried to escape from the custody of the abductor, but she could not make it. In the end, with the help of the neighbors, she tried to reach out to our team, social activists. We recovered her. After her recovery, we tried to present her in the court. Still, we are seeking for justice. So in Pakistan, it is very much clear that the justice system, that the stakeholder are violating its right of fair trial, violating multiple rights of children and women, not taking into account that girls has been abducted and forcefully converted to Islam. So in the last, I'm going to wind up with my recommendations. Serbia is not the only one. There has been multiple cases. I recommend to go to the website and please study the cases, multiple cases. There are court hearings, multiple court hearings we have added and published for your better understanding. So my recommendation to government of Pakistan is to ensure that conversion are regulated and testified by the special court, and that the statement of girls and are recorded not in front of the presence of abductor. Why? Because abductor they give threats to the family and to the girl. If you say anything against me, I will kill your brother many times or your family member. So there has been the element of threats that the girl has to say in the court that I am going or I went with her with my own will. So it should be in a different way investigation. The government must urge to introduce legislation amendment to criminalize forced faith conversion, introduce and pass the amendment to Child Marriages Chain Act to ensure that the minimum marriageable age is set 18 years for both boys and girls, and the marriage of minor children declared legally impossible. So I hope that the Pakistani government and international community will support us, that Pakistan make new legislation and the recommendations are accepted. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Joe. I just want to highlight at this point that we have to know that the West, once, for example, a girl like that is rescued and recovered, they do not give visas for these girls when you want to extract them and bring them. But for years, to try to save them, to take them out of Pakistan and take them into another country. And also we have the big all provided that the marriage took place in territory. And that is absolutely outrageous because we make a huge scandal here in the United States or in Belgium or in Australia.
are more than happy to accept that marriage as valid. The girl being convinced that she was being taken to visit her grandmother or something, and then even though, for example, I know the case of a Belgian girl, she could not return to school once she went back to Belgium. She could bring her husband of 50 years old or whatever, because it was family reunification. So it was really condemning her to this enslavement in a democratic country simply because the so-called marriage had taken place outside the territory. So we have to keep that in mind when we make our recommendations. But now I would like to give the word to Soraya, please, to give us also the perspective of how. Also, we'd like to hear from you, Soraya, what is the feeling, the impressions or thoughts of a Muslim man that is accused of this terrible thing? Is it normal? Thank you.
Much when four speakers go before you and point such a strong finger, community and your faith, you feel a sense of embarrassment, you feel a sense of sadness, and you feel a sense of despair, because all four can't be wrong. One is talking about a womb jihad, the other one is about forced conversions, and the other one spoke about rape. It's a very hard place. So I love my faith and I love my community. But for thousands of years, the men in my community truly believe that they are the recipients of God's message. They believe that they are better than, they believe that they are more capable than, and they believe that they are more favored by God than women. We have a problem. We have a problem. I remember when I was 13, I went to my local mosque, and there I was told I couldn't come there and that I couldn't pray there. And for 50 years now, I'm trying to change, less than 50, of course, I'm trying to change that, and still I have not been able to shift that paradigm. I also remember about 3 years ago, I was working on the task force of the mayor of Los Angeles on homelessness. You all must be knowing we have the biggest homeless crisis in Los Angeles, over 20,000 people. So one day I was at this meeting, and there was a woman who got a home. And when I asked her what it meant to her to have a home, she told me something so deep. She told me, I know that from today onwards, I will not be raped. That was a defining moment for me for the kind of work I do. Because my friends, fighting the patriarchy that is within the religious realm is not easy. It is a personal commitment. Because you will be crushed within your community first. And you will be crushed from forces outside who think they're doing us a favor by not truly addressing the issue. And that is a huge problem. They mean well, not only just in my country of birth, Sri Lanka, but even in the United States. People don't talk about the real things that impact the women. The patriarchal structures that reinforce these laws and our inability to understand our theology in its context. And we are paying a heavy price for that. I remember I was working in Bangladesh and I met this young girl, 14 years. 52% of women in Bangladesh are married before they are 18. And 22% marry by the time they are 15. And I met this little girl, she was just 14 years and her parents had collected a massive dowry and given her in marriage. And the man they found later was married to someone else. And they were fighting, not for the dignity of the girl, they were fighting for the dowry. Such is the level of despair in some Muslim communities, which bleeds out into many things that we are showing up and doing today. So of course we had an intervention, because as a grassroots activist, my job is to mobilize the community. So we brought people together, and there was a nice gentleman who had an organization, he intervened, and we got the money back. But the girl's life was gone. And when I came to the United States, I connected that community with some high schoolers in Los Angeles where I live. And we are working on issues. That is why I said, this is very personal. Whenever I advanced and pushed for women's voices in the religious field, not many people understood me. Because I was talking about a personal crisis in our community. And then I remember in Sri Lanka, another woman called Rizna. She was married to this man who divorced her. In our scripture, we can say talaq, talaq, talaq 3 times. And that has been misused and out of context. Because in 1400 years ago, we didn't have courts of law, we didn't have dispute resolution. Men just said talaq and they walked out of their marriage. But to this date, we want to hold on to these practices. And she went to courts. By the time she went to courts, the man had married somebody else. Now here was this woman going from court to court, trying to get some money for her child. So we have a broken system, and I will not mince my words to admit, because I feel when we acknowledge the problem, we are more able to solve it. And I feel we have to put our defenses down and call on our religious actors to correct this. You can't parade documents and say everything is fine. No, it's not. It's not only girls who are not Muslim. Muslim girls are at the receiving end of this patriarchy, because men believe they are more favored. So, this problem is pervasive, and we have to solve it together so that we ensure the dignity and human rights for women, particularly women. Not only women who are impacted, who are not Muslims, but who are also Muslims. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We have heard very impressive testimony of what's the that so many girls and women are facing to solve the problem of not having what Lindsay called the structures to support the returned women. And in this sense, also in Nigeria, when the girls or the women are returned, if at all, they are sick, they have HIV, they have venereal diseases, they are psychological trauma, and they need to find their way back, because the social stigma is so deep and big, they cannot be accepted anymore, so they have to be given the minimum elements to build their life back, as one would say. I heard from Christian Solidarity International a few months back how they recovered the women who had been enslaved in Sudan and brought back to South Sudan, and they buy them back. They gather money to convince the abductors to release them or to let them go. And once they manage to bring them back to South Sudan, they are given some little package with material to make a tent and to make some clothes. And they are given a female goat to have some milk and to have already something to sell or to eat, or some subsistence, and that they are so happy to receive those little things. But let's give it a thought of what can we offer to women who are returned to make a living, and how do they overcome the stigma. Aid to the Church in Need in Pakistan, for example, in one place and in a minimum scale, of course, pays for the lawyers, the legal services of Christian families trying to recover one of the girls. And with some rate of success, but absolutely it's not a given that just because you are able to force a court to take the case, the next court will continue. And they invent all those fabricated documents, etc., and the lawyers have it extremely hard to prove their case. Then there's the passing of the law, and there's recently, I mean, the Cardinal Courts of Karachi tried, like 1 year ago approximately, to introduce a law in which they imposed federally a minimum age for conversion, not for marriage, because it was like impossible to convince them that there's a minimum age for marriage. But they realized that they were a little bit more open to say, no, I mean, nobody, for Muslim girls, they shouldn't be forced to convert before they are 18. So they could convince a number of Muslim clerics that yes, it was important that Muslim girls could not be converted. So by playing in their own words, they almost achieved it, but then in the High Court, in the Parliament, they just keep postponing until the law was completely lost. And now we are told frequently that, there's no government, let's wait until there's a new government. And we have that same story of the let's wait until there's a new government. We have it in a lot of Middle Eastern countries and several African countries. Wait, you negotiate better once we have a government. We have to consider that an absolute no. We have to continue fighting with an interim government or not. We have to continue saving the girls because their suffering is no less as time passes by. So it is really one thing that I would suggest that we reflect together is this: what do we need to ask as a structure to receive them? And I also wanted to point out that there's the fact that Lindsay was describing about the pregnant women being abducted, etc., and so preventing the birth of new children into a particular group is a clearly defined act of genocide as per the Convention of the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide, preventing the birth of children into a particular group. So if that is what is happening, we also have a very powerful instrument of the international law. Okay, so now for the questions, if you can introduce yourself.
I have a question for the lady. Do you want to use the mic? Yes.
The mic for the questions is there.
Oh, there. Okay. Hi.
Mhm.
I had a question. Yes. The lady who was speaking marriage issues. For an example, every year many young women known as teenagers get married by force just for religion purpose. And we all know which religion is doing that. So what are you preconizing for these girls? Because the religion is very deep. You cannot fight the religion. They're gonna say these girls are getting married because they are practicing the religion. And the family has in their head, I'm doing this because it's good. God is providing this. So this young girl at 15 years old is gonna get married. She won't get any education. She won't go to the college. She's just gonna get married to her husband. The husband's gonna abuse her. She's gonna have children, many children. And 5 years later, you're gonna marry another young. What you have for them, because the religion is deep. I really want to know. Because when you don't get married young, girl, 20 years old, it's not good. Yes, it's not good. You don't have to go to school or whatever, and you have to get married early. Yeah, what are social stigma? It would be very important to hear from all of you, please.
Thank you. Thank you. So the discrimination you're talking about is national policies, state laws, tradition, and customs. So in defense of my faith, I must say, nowhere in the Quran does it say marry a child who is underage. It has become tradition and culture. And I, coming from Sri Lanka, I think in the last 5 years, Muslim women themselves have agitated for reform in the Muslim family laws. So now the government has raised the marriageable age to 18. And that's but and I'm told so in Bangladesh now, they have raised the minimum age. What I see is the more medieval and primitive are the laws and the customs they hang on to. And I have advocated, I always say, like you said, children need books, not husbands, right? So this fight, this is why it is so important that Muslim women themselves can't fight this. Even in Sri Lanka, where I work and live very much, we want other women to join us, help us amplify our voices and keep the good fight. Thank you.
I think another thing we are doing is not just in Islam, this marriage, early marriage. And I was talking to my mom, I just saw my difference in age. It means she married at 15. So in that case, I knew that not just in Islam, but where there's a little bit of literacy, then you find such cases. So what we do, like the organization I work with, is to make sure there is education and to bring the issues of sexual and gender-based violence and bring people out of the gender boxes, even the women, because like you said, even the women will want to support the fact that my daughter should just go. I want her safe in marriage. So we are teaching and bringing education and showing the disadvantages and advantages of allowing young women to go. Train a woman, train the whole nation. So all of those things are what we are speaking to help.
Yeah.
It's
Just okay, to talk about it. I think the situation for cops is typically a little bit different because they are highly encouraged to get educated. At least the kind of the upper echelon to become educated before they get married, and especially in Egypt as well as in the diaspora. So I think that's a little bit different situation. They typically don't get married young. But in terms of the patriarchy and kind of calling things what they are, I thought that was a really great point. The Coptic Church and other churches in Egypt should lead in caring for women who've been returned. And I don't see that exists because they don't even talk about it. So in terms of what can be done, if the Copts, Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox don't even talk about it, don't even recommend services, don't even talk about services that these women could have, then they're basically agreeing that these women's lives are now worthless. So I really liked that point that you made, and I think that it also just shows how powerless cops feel that their leadership won't raise it, because they are truly second-class citizens in all aspects of life.
Yeah, just what would you like to say about this? What should they?
I'm here, I'm listening.
Yes. Yeah, maybe.
You can repeat the question, please.
What do you have for young girls that get married every year? They get forced to get married because of religion purpose.
For culture.
And culture, yeah.
I mean, even a Christian girl feels forced to marry before she's 20 because otherwise she's too old.
14, 15.
In Pakistan, we have different circumstances. There is also one element of poverty, and the girls are like burden of the family and also big responsibility. So it's not only to provide them food, also to protect them because of the increases of sexual exploitation and harassment, and it's very difficult. So parents not only protect the girl, provide the girl, also protect sometime to go to somewhere to the cities, to do shopping or buy stuff. It's difficult for the girl to go alone. So it's a big responsibility to prevent all these incidents, violations. Parents in the rural areas, they try to make the arrangement for the girl to get married so that she can start her own life. Because there is a threat, because there is a lack of implementation laws, or because it is also the of the state, because they don't punish the perpetrators. So if they punish the perpetrators, then there is a more possibility. If they provide jobs to the girl, if they provide skills, if they provide. So in Pakistan, why it is, there are several reasons, not only Islam, but also, as I said, economical crisis.
Okay, Julia. It's, yes, am I?
Oh, here. That's that one? No. Marcela, about language is really important. And a conversation that I've had a number of times, particularly about Pakistan, is that the phrase forced marriage is actually not at all useful. And I'll explain why. When you use the word forced, as I understand, and I'm happy to be corrected, Joseph, but my Pakistani friend tells me that the implication is that there is always violence if you use the word forced. And I won't go into the rest of the sentence, but I agree with you, Marcela, that it's not helpful. It should be sexual slavery. But anyway, going back to the force and violence, what the courts will say and will show is this young girl hasn't been forced. There's been no violence. She hasn't been beaten up. She hasn't been attacked. What has happened? Look, she's in a relationship. Look at all the texts from this 40-year-old man. She's in a relationship with him. She's communicating with him. She loves him. You can see that they're, talking to each other every day. So there is really no concept of grooming. Now, we didn't have even the concept of grooming in the UK, maybe 20 years, 15 years ago. So we have to, I think, adjust our language because, as I understand, we're using the wrong words. So we're kind of just shouting into the wind. Does that make sense? That we need to reframe and call it, she's been groomed, a much older man. And his
say that I have been told in Egypt recently that sometimes the girls, because they will never have an iPhone, but they prefer to believe in the groomer, whatever promises he's making, in order to exit a spiral of poverty.
Yeah.
And that's when they say, no, it's impossible, they are not being forced, on the contrary. Okay, so please, the response.
the microphone's right there.
Okay, for George.
Yes, actually, I agree what she said. I mean, it's force is we are actually demanding or raising voice that the underage marriage in Pakistan, and Pakistan should implement Child Restraint Act, like making legislation throughout Pakistan. The set age for girls and boys 18 years. So when we go to the court, if we claim for forced, it is always rejected because there is a threat to Islam. Like person is converting to Islam, so then the Islamic, the tool or the tone or the thoughts support comes into it. But when we talk about she's child, she has been married under marriage, so then there is a clue to fight in the court. So that's what I, and also sexual exploitation, because these girls are not forced to convert to Islam. Actually, converting to Islam is a cover to protect yourself from the crime that you have committed to rape that girl. So when you raped the girl, abduct the girl, and you convert to Islam, that protect you because you are now a husband, so called. So then you are covered. So then so that the rape thing is eliminated. So that's why this is how. So exploitation. I think this is what we try. That's police do not add these sections. They don't add the rape. They don't add the abduction. They say she's like, for example, is lost or abducted. There is a section 335B. So after that, the recovery, she give her free will, and they also don't take into account that how threats and what are the reasons behind it. So that's, thank you. I think
They call it the back.
No, thank you. So, just touching on one of your points, in my experience, from what I've seen, observing in places like Pakistan or Afghanistan, anywhere else, you have these religious figures, like the mullahs, and even some of the masjids would say that it is normal, to behave like this, or that it is and so my question to you is, be the first or even the best step to take in order to combat that sort of viewpoint being so widely spread among the communities, because it is, in a sense, causing not just sexual violence, but ethnic violence as well as a slew of other problems.
Thank you very much.
In DC.
And someone waking up.
Sorry, yes. So the suggestion would be corollary to what was being said by Soraya and a couple other people here on distinguishing the faith from customs, traditions, political corruption, because we're here in a multi-faith community. We cannot afford to condemn a faith. I'm a Scientologist, but I have read the Quran in an English translation. I don't know how good the translation was, but I've read it. It doesn't justify any of this criminal behavior. And so we can't say this is Islam. This is some crooked version of a criminal mind who is doing crazy things to human beings. And they would use any faith to justify that, right? So we have to make that distinction in advocating. And then a question would be, I would be interested in doing advocacy on this topic, to know better the countries that were included in today's presentations. What international treaties have they signed on to and ratified? Human rights treaties that they're violating this way. It would be very good to specify that they've committed, they've made certain international commitments. What are they ratified that they're violating? And the other thing that I would suggest and ask about, I would like to know, but to be more specific, who in those specific countries should be responsible for maintaining these treaties, for protecting these women, for providing equal protection under the law? Which government officials? Rather than making a generality, entire Egypt, entire Pakistan, like what government entity, what official in that entity? This way we can advocate.
That's very easy to find even in Wikipedia. What are the treaties that are to protect each and every religion? It's fought with the government. Every government, when particularly the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights, made reservations, and all the reservations are available online. And many of them, they just say, no, we are not responsible for that. We don't agree on this because this contradicts the Sharia.
Right.
And they don't care about what the Quran says. It just says the Sharia. Okay, so another question from this gentleman, and
my name is Kausar. I'm representing child age is 15, it's very confusing. Somewhere it's child marriages is there, and some other issues with people, panelists, highlighted, they are there. Again, I have to second Anna that to be a religious person, to be a believer is not a crime, because no religions teaches any hatred. The thing is how we are portraying. What I think, I just want to remain specific to the some few numbers and specific to law. If you want to protect our children, want to stop child marriages, want to stop forced conversion, there should be a unanimous, law for all Pakistan that at the age of 18 is a benchmark. So if anyone want to convert even a religion and before the age of 18, to guardians, consent should be there. Or after 18, that's their own wish and will. But no force. Second, once,
but you know that there are different ages.
yeah, that's why I'm saying in Punjab, child marriage age is 16, in Sindh there is 18, in KPK is 14. I've been into the child walk before. I know things. The second is 77 million minorities living in Pakistan. Hindus, Christians, Bahai, Sikhs, never. For me, the more concerning thing is the literacy. 31% minority kids, the literacy rate of minority kids is 31%, which is very low. So my recommendation is to set the age benchmark and to give access to education to the minority kids, and gradually the education will change.
I want to quickly address that as a Muslim. It is not the Christian's duty to do that. It is the duty of the Muslims to agitate for
I did
that.
not ask any
No,
religious.
I'm just not only telling you generally, because we have a problem in that we have the silent Muslim, the participating Muslim, and the violent Muslim. We Muslims have been too quiet on behalf of our non-Muslim brothers and sisters. I think we have to come together and say, this is wrong.
Yeah. I just want to
Can I just, my point is relevant.
If you're able to please,
Yeah. So I agree that that is a really good goal. However, you'll remember, Marcela, that in that one of the recent cases, there was a whole coverage in the media that the courts said it's not to do with the marriage age. It's as soon as the girl has had her first period, she is eligible for marriage. So I actually think it's slightly missing the point, because if that is going to be what the courts then say, then it's that theology or belief or whatever it is that has to be discussed, rather than what is the marriage.
all mullahs are giving the fatwa, none of them get married before the age of 18. So please.
As the mic goes there, I want to also respond to that, what you were asking about laws and all of that. Like in the country, they have signed it as a nation, but because of the complication, Nigerian as a country, every state would have to sign it on.
Wow.
Yeah.
And presently, out of the 36 states, 12 states have not signed.
Right.
And they have not signed because they have all those things to handle. And it's more the northern part of Nigeria.
Thank you so much. When we advocate for that, we have to mention this is important.
That's right. It's right.
And then you or your father.
Okay. The question we have to ask does this kidnapping of girls happen to Muslims?
Yes, that happens also. Muslim girls get kidnapped.
Yes, but not very common. It has not started with Muslims. It's just now that it escalated in Nigeria. But before now, it's more on the Christian side.
The problem with this, which many people don't understand, kidnapping of Christian girls is a kind of jihad.
That's right.
And then you have
It's a persecution and then
preventing the birth of children in a particular group. Anybody
Well, I had a
else? I mean, just one more, two more questions, and then we have to leave.
Me, I'm gonna answer what he say. His question when he asked you were asking if this kidnapping was just happening on girls. Me, I'm gonna answer on Muslim girls. I'm gonna answer your question. Me, I'm from a Muslim country. My country is in war, and most of the time they have bandits. They got poverty, attack, and everything. And one time, I know whatever hell's gonna happen, they're gonna kidnap some girls, whatever they're Muslim or not, they will do it because sometimes it is for money. It is material sometimes. It can be materials, it can be voluntary. From my village, they kidnapped the wife of the chief. Yes. And he was Muslim, his wife was Muslim too.
This is the case of war. And this is a conflict between people, but in a city where there is no war, peace.
Even in cities, you just have to be careful.
Yeah. Well, okay, no, but
Doesn't
that's
matter
cases
if
of
it's
violence. Whatever the difference is on the consequences, is there justice or not? And just, yeah. You want to respond to what she said?
No, I don't want to respond to that, but I have a closing comment.
Yes, just that, gentleman.
I just wonder that as far as the war crimes are concerned, these people bring to justice, they are brought to justice what they have done. This is also a crime. How long we have to wait? Who has to consider that they should be brought to justice? How long? Because this crime is there from the many years. For the war crimes, it is decided that they should be brought to justice, International Court of Justice. But what about this? It's also a crime, big crime.
Yeah.
So who is going to the countries or who?
What is it?
I just wonder if anybody of them in the panel can answer on that.
They will be patiently recording. And then we make the closing statements. Regretfully, we can continue work.
I just want to say in my opportunity to evangelize here in the United States, attending the sessions, we're more alike than we are different. And I live in the United States. And what I will say is some of the things that we're talking about here as it relates to sex trafficking, there are similarities here in the United States. You know, the point. There are religious leaders that are in ministry and outside of ministry, because think about a lot of churches here in the United States, and I would say the same thing exists in these countries. But there are churches, synagogues that are in local communities, and these young ladies are sex trafficking. I can't say the word because it pulls in my heart, but they're around these churches, they're around these synagogues here in the United States. And if I see it as a parishioner and I drive to the church and I see it and I know what it is, then the pastors and the staff that are at these churches every day, they have to see it. So my point is, if we can focus on, as a group, on how we're similar, we can develop tactics and action to move forward because it exists here in the United States.
I think it's a matter of rule of law, however. But now there are conflicts further. Do you want to, please, each one make closing comments?
I'll keep it brief. I really appreciate what Anna said about doing joint advocacy. I think that this is a great opportunity for us to start the conversation. Meeting each other in person is going to create a lot more opportunities and synergy. And in terms of things,
Minority community and also in Nigeria, you are an example, like you're an example of, I think, fighting for the rights of the Copts are actually fighting for the rights of the Muslims as well. Like I always admire you because you are in a community speaking up for the rights of Muslim women to not be forced into underage marriage. And this is day in, day out. They're also now targeting people outside and forcefully converting them as well, adding to it. But fighting for the rights of Coptic women, you're also fighting for the rights of Muslim women who are not able to leave maybe the religion or who are stuck in an interpret or a practice that they don't want to be in. So actually, I think many times we look at ourselves as a minority maybe within the country, but actually you are kind of like a beacon of light and actually an example of practices that the wider community actually will benefit from if more people within the country started practicing, giving like inheritance rights to women. There's a lot of freedom for Coptic women, and that is actually attracting Muslim women to want to, So I just wanted to encourage the minority. You're not a minority. You're actually challenging laws within that, like Soraya is fighting for, that are not just, and shining a light on that. So I think.
And Soraya for keeping it up though. If we are quiet, we let down Muslim women within who are being persecuted within the minorities or within by saying it's religion or within the majority. So we have to, otherwise we lose people like Soraya or we're inside the country, outside the country.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all the time that you take here. And we will continue the conversation. It's luckily the first day of each summit.
Thank you. Thank you for putting down the together. Giving us together.